Broken camshaft repair. The insane workshop where workers risk everything. Picture this. A massive truck camshaft, completely shattered into pieces, lying on a dirt floor in a cramped workshop where the temperature hits 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Most mechanics in developed countries would simply throw it away and order a new one. But in the backstreets of Lahore, Pakistan, a group of incredibly skilled workers are about to do something that seems absolutely impossible. They're going to bring this destroyed piece of metal back to life using techniques that would make modern engineers shake their heads in disbelief. What you're about to discover in the next few minutes will completely change how you think about repair work. Because behind these amazing skills lies a dark truth that nobody wants to talk about. These workers are performing mechanical miracles every single day, but they're doing it in conditions that are slowly killing them. The workshop sits in an industrial area where dozens of similar operations are packed together like sardines in a can. The air is thick with metal dust, welding fumes, and the smell of burning oil. There's no ventilation system, no air conditioning, just a few rusty fans that barely move the scorching air around. Workers here specialize in repairing heavy machinery parts that most people would consider beyond saving. Broken camshafts, cracked engine blocks, twisted axles, you name it. If it's made of metal and it's broken, these guys will find a way to fix it. But here's the thing that's going to blow your mind. They do all this with equipment that's decades old, in conditions that violate every safety regulation you can think of, and for wages that wouldn't even cover a decent meal in most Western countries. Have you ever wondered what happens to all those unrepairable parts that mechanics in rich countries throw away? The process of fixing a broken camshaft is incredibly complex and dangerous. First, the workers have to assess the damage. This particular camshaft came from a heavy truck that had been in a serious accident. The main shaft was cracked in 3 places, the bearing surfaces were completely worn down, and several of the lobes were chipped and damaged. In any normal workshop, this would be considered scrap metal. But here it's just another day at work. Muhammad, a 42-year-old master welder, examines the broken pieces with the practiced eye of someone who's been doing this for over 20 years. He knows exactly what needs to be done, even though he never went to engineering school and can barely read or write. His knowledge comes from decades of hands-on experience, passed down from his father and grandfather before him. By the way, where are you watching this video from, and what's your name? Drop a comment below because I love knowing where our viewers are from around the world. The first step is welding the cracked sections back together. Now, this isn't your typical welding job. The camshaft is made of hardened steel, which is incredibly difficult to weld properly. If you do it wrong, the weld will crack again within hours of use. Muhammad heats up the broken pieces using a makeshift forge that burns whatever fuel they can get their hands on, usually old engine oil mixed with coal. The forge sits right in the middle of the workshop, pouring out toxic black smoke that fills the entire space. Workers nearby continue their tasks, breathing in these fumes hour after hour, day after day. There are no respirators, no protective masks, nothing. Muhammad positions the pieces carefully and begins welding. The light from the arc is so bright it could damage your eyes permanently, but he's only wearing regular sunglasses. A proper welding helmet? That's a luxury they can't afford. Sparks fly everywhere, landing on his bare arms and exposed skin. He barely flinches. The scars covering his arms tell the story of thousands of burns accumulated over the years. Once the main shaft is welded back together, the real challenge begins. The bearing surfaces need to be perfectly smooth and precisely the right diameter, or the camshaft will destroy the engine it goes into. In a modern machine shop, this would be done using a computer-controlled lathe that can achieve accuracy down to thousandths of a millimeter. Here they have a lathe that looks like it was built during World War II. It's operated manually, and the precision depends entirely on the skill of the operator. Rashid, a thin man in his 30s who looks at least 50, takes over at this stage. His hands shake slightly, not from nervousness but from years of exposure to vibration and the early stages of some kind of neurological damage that he'll never get diagnosed or treated. He mounts the welded camshaft on the ancient lathe and begins the painstaking process of machining it back to the correct specifications. There's no computer readout, no digital measurement. He uses a simple micrometer, checking and rechecking every few minutes. If you're finding this story fascinating and want to see more content about incredible yet dangerous manufacturing processes from around the world, smash that like button. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss our next shocking investigation. Your support helps us bring these untold stories to light. The machining process takes hours. The old lathe groans and shudders with every pass of the cutting tool. The cutting bit itself is makeshift, fashioned from whatever scrap metal they could find and sharpen. In a proper shop, Cutting tools are replaced regularly and are made from specific alloys designed for the job. Here they use the same tool until it literally falls apart, then they make a new one. The metal shavings that come off the camshaft are razor sharp and fly everywhere. Rashid's arms are covered in tiny cuts, some fresh and bleeding, others old and scarred. He wears sandals, not safety boots. His clothing is thin and tattered, offering no protection whatsoever. But his focus is absolute. He knows that one mistake, one moment of inattention, and hours of work will be ruined. Worse, the lathe could catch the camshaft and fling it across the workshop like a missile, potentially killing someone. The workshop itself is a death trap waiting to happen. Electrical wiring hangs loose from the ceiling, sparking occasionally when it gets wet from the rare rain. The floor is uneven concrete, slick with oil and metal shavings. Heavy machinery is packed so close together that workers have to squeeze sideways to move between stations. There are no emergency exits, no fire extinguishers, no first aid kits. When accidents happen, and they happen regularly, workers just bandage themselves up with whatever cloth is handy and keep working. Kareem, a young apprentice of maybe 16 or 17, lost 2 fingers last month when they got caught in a grinding wheel. He was back at work 3 days later, the wound still oozing because he couldn't afford to lose the income. His daily wage is about $3. $3 for 10 to 12 hours of work in conditions that would get a workplace shut down immediately in any developed country. Now comes one of the most critical and dangerous parts: restoring the bearing surfaces to the exact hardness they need. The camshaft has to be hard enough to resist wear but not so hard that it becomes brittle and cracks. This requires a process called case hardening, where the surface is heated to extreme temperatures and then rapidly cooled. In a modern facility, this is done in a controlled furnace with precise temperature monitoring. Here they do it by eye and experience. Ahmed, the oldest worker in the shop at 60-something, handles this part. He's been doing it so long he can judge the temperature by the color of the glowing metal. He heats the camshaft in the same dirty forge they used earlier, turning it constantly to heat it evenly. The heat is so intense that standing near the forge is almost unbearable. Ahmed's face is inches away, his skin reddened and scarred from decades of exposure. When he judges the temperature is right, he plunges the entire camshaft into a barrel of oil. The oil erupts in flames, sending up a column of black smoke and fire. This happens right in the workshop, surrounded by flammable materials, with workers passing by just feet away. The bearing repair itself is another story of incredible skill mixed with horrifying safety violations. The original bearings are completely worn out, but new ones are expensive and hard to get. So they make their own. They take old bearings from scrapped engines, machine them down, and rebuild them using whatever materials they can source locally. The process involves working with chemicals that are highly toxic. They use acids to clean the metal, solvents that are known carcinogens, and lubricants that contain heavy metals. All of this is done without gloves, without ventilation, and often without even washing hands before eating lunch. The long-term health effects are devastating. Most workers here don't live past 60. Many develop respiratory diseases, neurological problems, and various cancers. But they have no choice. This is the only work available and their families depend on them. The reassembly of the camshaft with the repaired bearings requires a level of precision that seems impossible given the conditions. Every measurement has to be exact, or the camshaft will fail catastrophically when installed in an engine. The workers use techniques passed down through generations, combined with an almost intuitive understanding of how metal behaves. They heat parts to expand them, cool parts to shrink them, and fit everything together with tolerances measured in tiny fractions of an inch. All of this is done by hand and feel, with tools that are worn and imprecise. Yet somehow, remarkably, it works. The repaired camshafts that come out of this workshop often last just as long as new ones, sometimes longer. The customers know this, which is why they keep coming back despite having other options. The testing process is equally nerve-wracking. Once the camshaft is fully assembled, it needs to be tested to make sure it's balanced and true. They mount it on a testing rig that's essentially a motor attached to some ancient measuring equipment. The camshaft spins at high speed while workers check for vibration and wobble. If something is wrong, if the balance is off even slightly, the spinning camshaft can explode, sending metal fragments flying like shrapnel. This has happened before. There are dents in the metal walls and ceiling where pieces have hit. Workers have been injured, some seriously. But there's no protective barrier, no safety shutdown system. They just stand there and watch, trusting their skills and hoping for the best. Let's talk about the bigger picture here. This workshop is one of thousands just like it scattered across Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and other developing countries. Together, they form a massive informal repair industry that keeps millions of vehicles and machines running. Western companies often talk about sustainability and recycling, but this is where the real recycling happens. Parts that would end up in landfills in developed countries get multiple lives here. That broken camshaft that started this story? It'll go back into a truck that'll haul goods for another 5 or 10 years before something else breaks. And when it does, it'll come back to a workshop like this to be fixed again. It's an incredibly sustainable system, but it's built on the backs of workers who are being slowly destroyed by their working conditions. The economic reality is brutal. These workers are incredibly skilled. What they do requires years of training and experience. In a Western country, a master machinist or welder with their level of skill would earn a comfortable middle-class income. Here they earn poverty wages. Mohammed, the master welder we met earlier, makes about $200 a month. Out of that, he has to support a wife and 4 children, pay rent, buy food, and somehow save for emergencies. There's no health insurance, no retirement plan, no sick days. If he gets injured and can't work, his family doesn't eat. This is the reality for millions of skilled workers in the developing world. The environmental impact is also staggering. All those toxic fumes, the heavy metals, the chemicals, they don't just disappear. They poison the air that everyone in the neighborhood breathes. They seep into the groundwater that people drink. The soil around these workshops is contaminated with lead, chromium, and other dangerous substances. Children play in streets where the dust contains levels of heavy metals that would trigger emergency cleanups in developed countries. The long-term health effects on the community are severe, but they're invisible and take years to manifest, so they're ignored. Here's something that'll really make you think. The customers who bring their parts to these workshops know about the conditions. They've seen the workers, they know what's happening. But they choose to use these services anyway because they're cheap. And we're all part of this system. That cheap product you bought online? The affordable repair you got done? Somewhere down the supply chain there's probably a workshop like this involved. We benefit from these incredibly low costs, but we rarely think about the human price being paid. The skill level in these workshops is genuinely extraordinary. These workers can look at a pile of broken metal and envision exactly how to fix it. They understand metallurgy, physics, and engineering at a practical level that would impress any formally trained engineer. But their knowledge is invisible, unrecognized, and certainly not rewarded. There's no career path, no advancement, no recognition. Young apprentices like Kareem will spend years learning these skills, and if they're lucky, they'll eventually become master craftsmen like Muhammad. And they'll still be poor, still be working in dangerous conditions, still be sacrificing their health and their lives. The global economy relies on these informal workshops more than most people realize. When a shipping company has a broken engine part in Karachi port and needs it fixed immediately, they don't wait for a part to be shipped from Europe. They bring it to a workshop like this and it's fixed in days or even hours. When construction equipment breaks down on a remote project, local workshops like these keep things running. They're the unsung heroes of global commerce, but they're treated as disposable. International organizations occasionally come through, talking about improving working conditions and safety standards. They take photos, write reports, make recommendations. Then they leave and nothing changes. The economic pressures are too strong. If one workshop tries to improve conditions and raises prices to cover the costs, customers just go to the cheaper workshop next door. It's a race to the bottom and the workers are the ones who pay the price. Some NGOs have tried to organize workers, to push for better conditions and fair wages. But the workers themselves are often resistant. They're afraid that if they push too hard, the workshops will close or move, and they'll lose even the meager income they have now. So what's the solution? Honestly, there isn't an easy one. These workshops exist because there's demand for their services, and that demand exists because of global economic inequality. As long as there are huge gaps in wages and costs between countries, these kinds of operations will continue. Some people argue for stricter regulations and enforcement, but in countries where governments are weak or corrupt, regulations are often ignored. Others argue for fair trade certification for repair services, similar to what exists for some agricultural products. But implementing and monitoring such a system would be incredibly complex. The camshaft that we followed through this repair process will be installed back in a truck within days. The truck owner will pay about 1/10 of what a new camshaft would cost, and he'll be satisfied with the repair. The truck will haul goods across Pakistan, probably overloaded and on terrible roads, and that camshaft will hold up. It's a testament to the incredible skill of the workers who fixed it. But those workers will go home tonight to cramped apartments, they'll cough up black phlegm from the metal dust in their lungs, they'll nurse their burns and cuts, and they'll get up tomorrow and do it all again. because they have no choice. Here's what really gets me: these workers are proud of what they do. They take satisfaction in their skills, in their ability to fix things that others consider impossible. Muhammad showed me a particularly difficult repair job he completed last year, and his face lit up as he described the problem and how he solved it. There's dignity in skilled work even when that work is grinding you down. These men aren't victims in their own eyes. They're craftsmen, problem solvers, providers for their families. They deserve better than what they have, but they make the most of their situation with remarkable resilience. The next time you see something repaired instead of replaced, think about who might have done that work and under what conditions. The next time you benefit from a low price on a service or product, consider what hidden costs might be involved. We're all connected in this global economy, and the choices we make as consumers have ripples that reach into workshops like this one halfway around the world. I'm not saying you should feel guilty, but awareness is the first step toward change. So what do you think? After hearing this story, how do you feel about the trade-offs between affordability and worker welfare? Is there a way to have both, or do we have to choose? These are questions without easy answers, but they're questions we need to be asking. The system we have now is producing remarkable results, keeping costs low and resources in use longer, but it's also grinding up human lives in the process. Can we do better? Should we demand better? Or is this just the way things have to be? In our next video, we're going to explore another incredible manufacturing process that combines amazing skill with shocking working conditions. We'll be looking at ship-breaking yards where massive ocean vessels are torn apart by hand, piece by piece, in conditions that are even more dangerous than what we saw today. You won't want to miss it. Until then, I want you to reflect on this. We live in a world where broken things can be fixed, where resources can be saved, and where human ingenuity can overcome incredible challenges. But we also live in a world where the people doing this vital work are treated as disposable. That's not right, and somehow, someday it needs to change.